Well, we're here today to talk about the art of people in the AI era. If you are scaling in part by scaling people. The complication is, according to Gallup research, only 1 in 10 people actually has what it takes to lead other people, which means statistically, most of us have built our businesses wrong. So we're here today to talk about that, and with a strong AI era twist. I'm Jason. I'll be your host today, together with FNB. My background is I've been doing this more or less for about 2 decades, helping companies like yours scale. I'm the author of Art of Scale and the founder of this business, Edge Growth, and its underlying brands, which are all about helping companies like you scale with capital, with capability, and with networks. I've spent about the last 2 years at the nexus of scaling and AI because it is the generational leap of our time, and you simply won't scale well without embracing AI in these times. So that's why we are here today, but actually we would never be here without First National Bank. This event and all the rest of Founders at Work are sponsored by FNB. So I'd just like to welcome Rion up, who's going to share a little bit about why FNB does this sort of thing. Rion, please come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning, everybody. I'm Rion Skumbi. I'm the regional head for the small SMEs in KZN, small to medium enterprises in KZN. So we're leading a dedicated team of people looking after our business customers and helping them to solution for whatever business needs they might have. And thank you on behalf of FNB. We welcome you. And thank you, Jason, for your initiative with the founders team and to help businesses, grow in FNB. And FNB, I think we're more than a bank. In that, the beyond banking stuff that we do is, these type of initiatives that we help. Also, if you go onto your FNB platform, for instance, you'll find a lot of solutions. So, for instance, yesterday we came out of a conference about sustainable energy, and I didn't even know it. We can actually go and put in your requirements, and it will tell you what solution you need for your business, and then you can talk to somebody, and we can even help you to finance that at the end of the day. So it's just to help you become your business more sustainable, and that's so many tools. It's from cash flow insights. It's from these type of seminars. It's a whole lot of aspects that we go actually beyond banking and helping our customers, to grow their businesses and scale their businesses at the end of the day. I don't want to talk too much. I hope everybody knows where our facilities are in the building.
I'm not sure. Why don't you tell them?
Okay, because I know sometimes when we need to go. If you just go outside the passage as you came in from at the lifts, my left, your right hand side, you'll find the restrooms there. We're just here also just to finish off, Jason, is to how do we, not you working in your businesses, but working on your businesses, and how do we really form partnerships? And I've got my team is here, so can I just ask the Help Squad FNB team to stand up? So if there's any requirements, please engage with them later. I will also be around, so please, if there's any questions or anything that we can help with, please shout out. We're really here to help and support. And thank you, Jason. Thanks for this.
I hear they're writing big checks, so thanks, Rion.
Thank you so much.
So let me tell you a bit more about Founders at Work, and I can just say I can attest to the fact that FNB walk the talk. We have partnered with them for over 15 years. They've helped us set up, I think, 6 funds for funding SMEs, run countless programs fully sponsored for SMEs to scale, and do things like Founders at Work. So Founders at Work aims to bring you learning, networks, and opportunities to apply real tools in the room for scaling your business. And Founders at Work was started late last year, particularly recognizing the advent of AI, how significant that would be for scaling, and recognizing that SMEs are going to need a kickstart adopting and embracing this extraordinary technology. So there's a lot to benefit from. Check out foundersatwork.co.za. Sign up, connect on LinkedIn, subscribe on the site, and you'll be getting information about the resources available to you. There's a lot of high power and free stuff. I'll tell you a little bit about some of that, but just who's behind it. It is F&B and Art of Scale. And so we've partnered and we curate, we bring together some of the world's best thought leaders on AI and scaling, and give that to you in the installments of podcasts, of an annual summit, and these Founders at Work Masterclasses. We're here today, and in a month's time, we'll be talking about how do you run your company on AI. So how do you execute your strategic priorities on in the AI era? And then we'll be talking in May about the art of hiring. How does hiring shift in the AI era? And there'll be a monthly masterclass thereafter, and you can continue to follow the latest events and where those will be happening. They're all live streamed, so if you're not in the city where we're running the event, you can catch the live stream online. Okay, so that's a little bit of welcome and housekeeping. You'll know where the bathrooms are now. More importantly than the bathrooms, the coffee is next door, and we'll be having breaks roughly every hour, so you can enjoy some of that. We're about to dive into the main content for the day. We're going to spend an hour talking about the art of people in the age of AI, and then we're going to take a break. We're then going to have a laboratory that you're going to get work done here in the room using AI to learn how to leverage AI to scale. And so you will walk away with shipped outputs that are ready to take your business to the next level. And then toward the end, there will be some guided network where Francie will suggest some pairs where you get to know another founder, CXO of Scale Up, and you get to introduce yourselves to one another and hopefully benefit from one another's networks. And then we'll close out at 1. How does that sound? Good. All right. Should we get going? Okay, part 1. We're going to be drawing in little bits on the material in The Art of Scale. It's a book we published just about 2 years ago. It covers the 12 laws of scale. The first 3 are about the physics of failure. This comes out of our painful experience, passionate about the heroes of the South African story, entrepreneurs that you, but why do so many fail when they scale? And so out of that, that painful wrestle came years of practice and study and so forth, and this book. And the first 3 laws are about why good businesses succeed their way into failure. And then the rest of the book is about what to do about that, the 9 laws that make up the science of success. And today we're talking about one of those. We're talking about law number 8, which is the law of people. How do you scale? By scaling people. Okay, so with that in mind, the departure point is this. Every company, if you succeed your way into failure unless you change things. And one of the first things you have to change is how you run the business. Because if you are the system, if you are the system for the business, that system will break. And so once you get to a point of 15 or 20 headcount, typically, you've got to change the system. The system can no longer be you. You've got to externalize the system, and the front line, almost your avant-garde against the rise in chaos and complexity is talented people. And so the first thing you've got to do is decentralize leadership away from yourself and into other people. You've got to hand over parcels of responsibility. This is the great paradox. To increase control, you've got to release control. It means giving away material responsibilities to other people. But we all know we want to do that, but it's easier said than done. And so to do this, you've got to get 2 things right. You've got to have people you can trust because they're A players. And then you've got to get the best out of them. And so those are hiring and leadership challenges. Those are the 2 big things you've got to get right as you're scaling. And so people is a big topic, so we can't cover it all in one go. So we're going to cover the art of hiring in 2 masterclasses time in May. Today, we're going to double click on the art of leadership and focus on that one discipline. And I want to introduce the art of leadership through a story in a wonderful book by the title Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. Who's read it? Who's read Multipliers? Okay, 1 or 2 hands up. It is one of my most highly recommended leadership books. I recommend reading a lot of leadership books, not just one, but this is one of my most highly recommended if you're going to scale. So I'm going to share with you a story shared by the author, Liz Wiseman, at the beginning of the book. And then we're going to unpack it a little bit. Now, the story is not political. The context is now politicized because it's the Israeli military, but the story is selected not for that reason. It's selected for the leadership lesson it tells us. The story is of a young man named Gabriel. Gabriel Oz is a very talented young Israeli 17-year-old who then, of course, reaches the point of mandatory conscription, and so he goes off to the Israeli military. Now, he's very talented. He comes out of all the tests rated very highly emotionally, physically, intellectually, and so he gets sent to tank command, which is the most challenging assignment in the Israeli military. If you think about operating in a tank, you're surrounded by you and 6 people. You've got to coordinate with each other live in real time in a 360-degree battlefield, coordinating not only internally but externally with the rest of your forces in the context of live battle above, below, all around. Think about that. So it's an extremely challenging context. So Gabriel is very talented, gets sent off to tank command, and goes through his first 3 months of basic training. He and his unit are performing extremely well. They rise to the top of their class, and then live battle breaks out in the Golan Heights, and they're short resourced, and so Gabriel and his team get sent to the battlefront, even though they have not yet completed their basic training. So off he goes, he and his unit, and they spend a couple of months on the battlefront, and then they return to basic training, where, of course, the classes continued with their basic training, which they've missed out on. They've been at the battlefront. So they return, and there's a new leader. And the new leader at Tank Command is a man by the name of Yuval. Yuval shares a lot in common with Gabriel. Very talented, very smart. He's 10 years ahead, of course, of Gabriel, and he's had a stellar career. And so now he is assigned to lead the basic training at Tank Command. And so Gabriel and his team come back to Yuval, and it's a tough transition. And they find the first couple of days and then weeks extremely challenging. And it just feels like everything they do is wrong. There's nothing they can do that's right. Yuval continues to point out their failings and their deficits, and slowly but surely their performance just deteriorates until the point where Yuval actually nominates them for an exit examination. If your performance is that poor, you actually get exited from Tank Command, but you first have to go through an exit examination. So they're nominated for an exit examination, and it has to be undertaken by an independent examiner. So the new guy, Lior, enters the scene to conduct this exit examination, and he goes through the nature of the assignment with Gabriel and his team, asks how they're thinking about it, how they will approach it. They have to perform what's called the Ringo maneuver. It is the most challenging maneuver you can perform as a unit. And so that's what they have to do. They walk through it together, kind of visually simulate how they're going to approach it, and so on and so forth. And then they perform the examination. They pass it with flying colors, and so Yuval gets fired. What happened in the story? Like, what are the basic beats? How many phases are there in the story? Okay. Pre-battlefront, battlefront, post-battlefront. What things change in these phases of the story? Leadership changes. Good. What else changes? Context changes. Yeah. How about performance? Okay. Yeah. So, pardon?
More immersion. You're going from a positive environment to a negative environment.
Yeah, inner world changed quite a lot. So there are a bunch of things that changed. I want to focus on 2 of those. I want to focus on leadership changed and performance changed. And do you think that's a coincidence? No. Do you think there could be some relationship between those 2 things? Yeah. What do you think that relationship might be?
Or maybe the Gabriel was his motivation came from encouragement and someone showing his strengths, with this guy coming and constantly showing his faults, and maybe his motivational way was that would demotivate him.
Trust. And also maybe Yuval was the perfectionist. It's not that it was driven by just pointing out failures or flaws, but he, since he's also an excellent in his job, he was just wanted everyone to be maybe to that level, and maybe it might take time or guidance to actually reach that.
So a lot of things could be going on here. Probably all of these things are part of the tapestry. We're all reflecting from our own experiences. What is it that could be going on here? But I want to generalize now for the moment, because that's what Liz Wiseman does. Gabriel's is one story, but she actually studied 3,000 executives on all continents to study scenarios where people seemed to thrive and where people didn't, and draw out the common threads. And she summarizes her findings basically in the one-word title of the book, Multipliers, which also has an expanded version. Multipliers are leaders who get more out of their people, and diminishers are people who get less out of their people. And she discovers that leaders can do either. By the way, I can do either. I can do them both on one day, and so can you. So it's not that person's a multiplier, that applies a diminisher, but you can be more one or more the other, and that's what she finds. The leaders who are more multipliers get extraordinary results out of their people. And leaders that are diminishers do the opposite. Here's the visual I want you to have. You have got a volume dial on your head. But actually, it's not a volume dial. It's a performance dial, and it goes from 0 to 10. And who do you think has got their hands on that performance dial?
He might have a leader above him, which hasn't come into play here.
Sure.
But if you're a business owner, yes, then your leadership is what's going to flow down. But then it also comes back to all the other aspects on you as a person.
100%. This is complex. It's not simple. But we, unfortunately, have small brains, so we have to talk about one thing at a time. So we're just focusing on this one thing. But I agree with you. It actually is complex, and there are a lot of related factors. It doesn't change that there's a very powerful lever in our hands. As we think about how we scale our company, there are 1,000 things we need to get right. But most of those are small levers. And a handful of them are really big levers. And one of the big levers is the volume dial on your people's brains. It's literally, this is neuroscience. When we are feeling fearful, insecure, literally what happens is the part of our brain that's most important to high performance turns off. Our prefrontal cortex shuts down, and we go into survival mode. It just turns out the prefrontal cortex is what's responsible for our best decision making, our creativity, our collaboration, our openness, our perspective, all the kinds of things you want in your high performers. And those are the very things that get turned off when we are afraid and insecure. And how do you think Gabriel felt after weeks where nothing he could do was right? Okay, so that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the volume dial on your people's minds and how you turn it up as an organization rather than down, because that is a very big lever. All right, so how many of you have had the kind of Gabriel experience in like part 3 of this movie? How many of you have felt what it's like to not quite be yourself, not be like performing at the level you know you're capable of, and there's something in the environment that's doing this? Okay, see a lot of nodding of heads. I can relate. You've been working for 10 years, you've been through this. What about the opposite? How many of you have had the privilege of the experience of being absolutely thrilled, exhilarated by the way you're being led, surprised by what you seem to be capable of, a little bit anxious that so much is expected of you, and also surprised at what you're bringing to the table? How many of you have had that experience? Okay, a lot of hands also going up. It turns out that this is stats, this is statistics, this is life. In fact, Gallup, the same Gallup with that did the research, workplace research that produced that insight, that only 1 in 10 people have the ingredients to be great leaders and managers of others. That they did workplace engagement research, which showed some fascinating correlations. None of these will surprise you. So they discovered through research that when you look at companies that go into financial decline, it turns out if you look back in time, number 1 ingredient that predicts this is, well, No surprises here. The customers are unhappy. When customers are unhappy, it won't be long until that shows up in the financial results. And when they looked at that and they asked, what is the number one predictor that customers become unhappy? Well, guess what they found? What's that? Staff are unhappy. It's very hard to make a customer happy if you yourself are being made miserable, right? And when they looked at what makes staff unhappy, guess what they found? What was the number one predictor of that? Yeah. So no surprises here, right? This is what you would have guessed they would find. And it turns out they actually did find it. Now, there are tons of studies. I don't want to bore you with them. The point is that this is known in the management science, that the way people are led, it has a direct causal relationship with company performance. And it's not a small correlation. It's a significant correlation. And so with that in mind, we want to build leadership cultures that are more multiplying, not more diminishing. That is part of what we need to do. And so I want to give you an introspective moment to think about your company's leadership culture. This is not a personal reflection right now. The topic is your leadership body. So the unit of analysis here is your collective leadership team. I want you to think about whether or not your collective leadership team is more multiplying or more diminishing, more bringing out of people surprising levels of performance, or more dampening what people could potentially bring to the table. Now, I'm going to give you a bit more detail to reflect on. I'm not going to walk through it all in detail. I'll just kind of orientate you so you can interpret it. This is a summary of Liz Wiseman's book. What she says is, in a nutshell, what multiplies and diminishes get out of people is very different. Diminishes only get a fraction of what people could bring to the table. People say things like I'm definitely not bringing my best. In fact, I'm hiding. I'm trying to stay out of the spotlight. I'm trying to not be seen because I'm worried that will just get me into trouble. By comparison to multipliers who consistently say, I'm not only giving all that I've got, in fact, I'm giving more than I thought I had. And the way that they get these results is through the way that people experience being led. And these are 5 dimensions on which multiplies and diminishes behaviors, and experienced behaviors are different. So I want to give you a few moments to reflect on your own leadership culture as a collective. Are we more multiplying or diminishing? Because, if we're not multiplying at a high level, that is a major lever that is free. That is a free lever for you to scale. Okay, so a couple of moments for you to reflect, and then we're going to kick on. I want to give you some questions that will help you deepen your reflections here. So I want you to think about the people in your leadership team that have the biggest teams reporting into them, biggest organizations reporting to them. And then I want you to think about whether or not you experience people on their team having more this experience or this experience. I want you to think about top talent that have been around in the last few years and what they have said about their experience. Have they felt more, challenged to thrive in a positive way, or oppressed and stifled in a negative way? The good news here is that every person, me, you, the people reporting to you, we all have the ability to move in that direction. These are concrete behaviors that are learnable and doable. We have the ability to become self-aware and shift in that direction. And it's good for me, and it's good for my team, and it's good for the company. So this is a really big lever if you just double down and focus on it. Okay, 2 more minutes of reflection, and then we'll kick on. I see some furious note-taking, so I'm going to give it another minute, and then I'm going to apologize for interrupting. But I want you to pin the thoughts you're busy with and pick them up this week. Apparently, I'm discriminating against the back row. Is that better? Okay, so hopefully that's been a productive reflection for you. The the key takeaway is there is a huge lever at your disposal to be able to scale for free by getting more out of your people through turning the volume dial up on all of your people. Shift from diminishing to multiplying leadership behaviors, and that just requires effort as a leadership team to grow. Okay, but there's a new multiplying factor in the picture, and that's why we are here today. In this research, which probably most of you have heard of, I'm not sure, was done by Harvard and BCG. What they discovered is that some of the smartest, knowledge workers in the world, if you separate them into camps, top performers, and lower performers, and then you separate them into groups who use AI and those who don't use AI, and actually quite bad old AI now. The lowest performers who use AI outperform the top performers who don't use AI. Think about that for a moment. Yeah.
Please ask that we clarify the context of AI
Yes.
and what we're doing today, because a lot of people have different
Yeah.
visions of what AI is. So depending on what your definition is, I could agree with that.
Great. Thank you. That's a good point. So as I talk about AI today, what I'm talking about is generative AI and particular large language models like ChatGPT and Claude. And the reason for that is because a lot of the AI that's been around for the last 2 decades is inaccessible to most of us as small businesses. Build your own AI with your own proprietary large data set and at quite large expense, requiring expensive talent and so forth. That's out of reach for most of us. But what's within our reach at $20 a month is ChatGPT or Claude, and it's in all of our reach, and it is transformative. And so, not to discriminate against Gamma and image generators and Suno and so forth. Obviously, a lot of modalities of generative AI. Our focus is on that which brings the greatest impact to the most SMEs, and that's large language models, in particular ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and so forth. So that's what I mean today, how you use those tools with your unstructured data in the normal course of your business. And that's what this means too. So this is literally talking about ChatGPT 4.0. How long ago was that? And the group that used ChatGPT 4.0, the lowest performers, outperformed the top performers that did not use AI. The performance shift was not insignificant. They delivered 40% higher quality on average than the group performing with not using AI. They worked at 25% higher speed, did 12% more work in the same time, and the biggest performance boost was for the lowest performers. Think about how this shifts what it means to scale people in the AI era. It's a tectonic shift. And so because of this, we have a new multiplying factor at our disposal. Before 2023 in the ChatGPT moment, the multiplying factor was leading as a multiplier, and that still is, and it's as important. But now you've got another one too. And so we're going to talk about what this changes about leading, particularly leading people in the age of AI, and what it means for us. So we're going to unpack that in 3 sections. We're going to talk about how has the world changed from a leadership perspective in an SME. We're then going to talk about how's the job of leadership changed as a result. And we're then going to talk about how you can make the shift. All right, so let's go through it. So here's another very powerful body of research. This research is quite recent. I think it dates to around December, January. They update it periodically, but you can see this is ChatGPT 5.2, and we're on 5.4 now. And what this research demonstrates is that when you task AI with doing a kind of basket of work that's normal in a knowledge work environment, and then you task experts to do the same work, and then you get human reviewers who are blind to rate which of the work was better. With 74% of the tasks in the basket of work, AI did a better job than the experts. Think about that. The progression is really clear. So this is ChatGPT 5.2 Pro. These are slightly older models. This is ChatGPT 5 Thinking. That's 6 months ago. So what this says is that the win-loss ratio, this is like where the blindfolded experts rate AI on average as good as the human experts. So below means humans are winning more. Above the line means AI is winning more. In 6 months of technological development, AI went from losing most of the time to winning most of the time by quite a long way. And the rate of progression is fast. So the models are getting better and better and better. This curve measures how fast the number of minutes of quality work AI can do is growing. So going back like a year or two ago, they were talking about AI being able to work for like 1 minute before a human needs to review and direct. Otherwise, AI starts drifting. Well, that number pretty quickly became an hour, and then 4 hours. And now it's 7 hours. And now they've actually left an AI construct, AI with a whole bunch of surrounding harness, to build a compiler that's a fancy piece of software that could compile Linux. It ran for 2 weeks with no human intervention and built a compiler that worked on first run. 2 weeks. So this curve, the number of hours of work AI can do better than a human expert is doubling every 7 months. Doubling every 7 months. Now, the reason I'm sharing this data is to make a point. There's a fundamental force at play in our world in which we lead and grow our businesses. And that force is that artificial intelligence, and again, I'm talking primarily here for us about LLMs, it's collapsing the cost and scarcity of expert work. Work that used to be costly and scarce, you had to find somebody who was highly studied, highly trained, highly experienced, and afford them, and then dedicate them to a task for quite a lot of hours, and there's a lot of other things they could be doing, and that's why it was scarce and it was expensive, and now that same work is almost free and available to all of us. Now, not all work, we'll get to that. AI is bad at a lot of stuff, but the point is a lot of work that was costly and scarce is now abundant and cheap. And that changes how you do work. That changes how you organize to do work. And that's what we are as businesses. We are organizations organized to do work. And how you organize to do work has fundamentally shifted. So let's make this very practical. I want you to think back to your wow AI moment. I mean, has everybody had a wow moment where you're like, okay, that's impressive. I didn't think that software could do that. Okay, I'll share with you a couple of mine just to stimulate you. So this is a bad app, but it's pretty damn good for somebody who's never coded before and it works. And that person is me. So we homeschool our 10-year-old boy, and he's like a lot of other 10-year-old boys. He doesn't want to do school or chores or anything organized and responsible. And so he's coming to his mother throughout the day asking things like, can I have screen time? Can I do this? Can I do that? She's like, have you done your chores? Have you done this? Have you finished that? Yeah. And it's driving her mad. And so when I heard about Gemini's AI Studio, that's Google's product, this is about 6 months ago, that enabled you to build apps. I opened it up on a Friday evening, and by Sunday morning, in 15-minute slots between hiking and spending time with friends and family, like not sitting down to build something, but in gaps on my mobile phone, on the walk, and I built an app that worked and changed my wife's life. Because now my boy knows what he must do in the morning, in the middle of the day, and at the end of the day. And if he doesn't have a perfect day, he doesn't get his coins. And if he gets no coins, he gets no privileges. And that means no screen time. And he knows he mustn't ask for things before he's finished this. There's certain things he can only get after this. Certain things he can only get after this. And it's very simple. And he tracks it himself. So all he has to go and do is tick what he can tick. And that's it. It has changed my wife's life. And I did it in 36 hours in 15-minute windows while hiking, walking, and hanging out with people I like. Think about that. That is an example, a concrete, real-world example of how barriers to expert-driven work have collapsed to zero. I cannot code. All right, there are a bunch of others. My same 10-year-old boy, Eli, he loved playing on my brother-in-law's 10-year-old iPhone because the ancient iPhones had this game called Flappy Bird, which apparently makes your iPhone a collector's item. Anyway, the iPhone broke, and he was very upset that he couldn't play Flappy Bird. And so we heard about this app called Lovable. And so we opened it up, and he sat down, and he wrote something like, "Make me a game like Flappy Bird." Enter. 5 minutes later, he was playing Flappy Bird. Think about that. The point I'm making is AI is fundamentally collapsing the barriers to the expertise and capability that makes things possible. And therefore, it is changing what people are capable of. The people you employ right now are now capable of almost unimaginably more than they were when you hired them if you partner them with AI. And that changes not just what they are capable of, it changes what your business is capable of. This is why there is a new multiplying factor for your people. That multiplying factor is AI. So that is why we're talking about the art of leading in the age of AI, because some fundamental things have changed. Now, I've covered quite a lot of this on the left-hand side. I'm going to recap it in brief terms just to bring it all together. So we've talked about the fact that constraints have fundamentally changed. It used to be true that expert-driven work was scarce and expensive. Those constraints have changed. The question is, has your business caught up? Is your business organized around the old constraints or the new constraints? Secondly, the performance equation has changed. Performance used to be kind of effort times talent, and now you've got to add one more thing, which is AI leverage. Times AI leverage is now in the performance equation. And that means as a leader, you need to be very intentional about for each person building their AI leverage. So here's our scorecard. We think of AI, personal AI leverage for an individual on 4 dimensions. People need to grow in their fluency. This is the capability to extract maximum intelligence from the machine. If you want to think about it, there's an infinite ocean of intelligence out there, but you only get out according to the size of your pipe, and most people have got a very thin straw. And if you want people to go from having a very thin straw to a very thick pipe, there are actual techniques to master, to work with this technology. That's AI fluency. And then it doesn't help to be extraordinary at extracting intelligence and do it for 5 minutes a week. You've got to build new habits. You've got to start working differently so that you're continually pulling that intelligence out of that ocean of intelligence out there. So there's AI augmentation, habits. And then, it's a lot of fun making songs. It's a lot of fun creating great pictures. But does that move the needle? The third discipline is applying AI in your rare, scarce windows of time to the issues that move the needle, to the issues of consequence. The third dimension is strategic value you're getting out of using AI. And then lastly, I don't know, you've all by now heard the word, and probably most of us don't know what it means, agentic AI. Agent this, agent that. 2026 is the year of agents. Well, it is true. And most of us don't understand why yet, but when you shift from AI answering a question impressively, you prompt, it answers. It's impressive. But who has to do the work? You have to do the work. When it shifts from that to, you give it a goal and you come back a week later and it's done. That's agentic AI. When you give it goals, more importantly, tools, things it can actually work with, access to PowerPoint and Excel and a database and so on. You give it parameters, constraints, things it can and can't do. You enable AI to act autonomously, to get stuff done for you. And that means AI doesn't just work when you prompt it, it works while you sleep. A metric you can start to think in terms of is how many brains worth of intelligence are you extracting, intelligent work are you extracting out of your organization? If you employ 100 people, you're probably extracting about 10 brains worth of work. Why? Because the brains you pay, they sleep, they eat, the times they don't work, and then when they do work, a lot of work doesn't need their brain, or certainly not at 100%. So you may be employing 100 people and getting 10 brains worth of work. Agentic AI is what helps you employ 100 people and get 1 million brains worth of work. Can you, if you're getting 10 brains worth of valuable cognitive work, can you compete with an organization getting 1 million brains worth of cognitive work out of the same 100 people and payroll? Of course you can't. So you need to be very systematic in how you think about building AI leverage in your people. One by one, this is a core managerial competency to take each individual up the fluency ladder and actually all 4 of the ladders. Okay, so that is number 2. The equation has shifted and therefore we need to optimize for human AI leverage. Number 3, possibilities have changed. As we sit in this room today, I can guarantee you that because of the advent of AI, your assumptions about the future are wrong. In particular, your assumptions about what's possible are wrong. Your assumptions about what's possible for you are wrong, and your assumptions about what your people are capable of delivering are wrong. AI has fundamentally changed what's possible, and we need to catch up with what's possible. Number 4, the performance drivers have changed. This is linked to the first 3, but as a consequence, and mental model I want to give you to think about this is when you climb off the plane at the airport, maybe not King Shaka, but certainly at Oliver Tambo, it's massive. And so people walk fast to go and get their bags, and then they stand around for a long time. And so you know that long walkway, and there are people there's the fast walkers, and there are the slow walkers. Now you could use this as a metaphor and call them A players and B players, right? That the ones who put all their effort into best possible performance, and those that just coast. Well, it turns out when you add an escalator into the picture, the people who walk slowly on the escalator, they're faster than the people who walk fast, not on the escalator. And that is true of AI. The people who work slowly but with AI will be faster than the people who work fast but without AI. And so that is why the performance drivers have changed. And number 5, team composition has changed. It used to be that we are just employing people. It's very tempting to think, because of everything that I've said, that now we'll move away from people and automate everything and actually just work with AI. But that's way too simple. It turns out if you phone customer service at any organization that has replaced all their people with AI agents that do customer service, you've probably got less hair and you've moved your business, because the experience was probably awful. To this day, customer service is not living up to the promises of AI and agentic customer service. And it's not limited to that domain. I mean, this is from January. January, you asked these very intelligent machines to come up with an alphabetic poster for kindergarten kids using animals to help them memorize the letters. And those kids are not going to pass. Right? This was AI in January, the smartest models in the world. And I actually redid this test at the beginning of last week with what's now rated as the smartest scientific model in the world. And it still got things wrong. I mean, that's today. That's in March 2026. The point I'm making is AI is extraordinarily smart and also extraordinarily dumb. It's not just smart. And so one of the thought leaders in the field, Ethan Mollick, he calls this the jagged frontier. AI's capabilities are spiky. It exceeds our expectations in some areas, and then it radically underperforms our expectations in others. It's not smooth, its capabilities. And those capabilities are changing. And if you compare, the edges of what AI is capable to the edges of what the average person is capable, it turns out AI can do a lot of tasks better than basically every human. but a lot of tasks it can't. In fact, some tasks it can't do as well as a kindergarten kid. And so that's the jagged frontier. So AI can do a lot of tasks, but not many jobs. If a job is a construct of lots of different tasks, AI can do almost no jobs today, because there are many tasks that are essential to those jobs that AI does badly, and it fundamentally undermines the performance of that job. And so when you understand this, you realize we're not actually automating people out of the picture. What we're doing is we're reorganizing work to harness the superpowers that AI brings, but also what we're discovering are superpowers that people bring. And so the new organization is not just human, like it was pre-AI, but it's also not just AI. It is human plus AI in an equation where 1 + 1 = 10. That's the equation of the future. And so team constitution has changed. Now, of course, this jagged frontier is moving, and people are speculating about when we reach AGI, artificial general intelligence, and AI is better at everything than people. And that is in the realm of speculation. It may happen, it may not happen. Certainly some of the godfathers of AI are saying it will not happen with the current technology. There are breakthroughs needed that we don't even know what the breakthroughs are yet. And just inherent in the limitations of the current technology, we cannot get there on what we know today. And so it's a question mark if we'll ever get there. The point is we're going to be living with this jagged frontier for quite a long time. And certainly for the next 5 years, it's human plus machine. That is what the team makeup is. And so that's the fifth thing that has changed. Team composition has changed. Now, I've spent quite a bit of time on those things. I'm going to go through these ones, this middle column, a bit faster. And so I'm just going to walk through these, boom, 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 top to bottom. What has changed about the leadership job? Obviously, this changes what it means to be a leader. So the fundamentals, they stay the same. But there are new elements in the picture of what a leader's job has become. So firstly, obviously, I as a leader am now a leader of humans and of AI. In fact, they've discovered that the people that are best at using AI are managers. So not AI engineers, managers. Why do you think that is? We have learned to lead. We have learned to delegate. We have learned to give clear instructions and boundaries and to evolve those as situations change. It's just ingrained in us as second nature. And it turns out that's what you've got to do with AI. You've got to set up a intelligence to be able to perform work with clear understanding, clear background and context and the tooling it needs, and to be mindful of where it will run into limitations and then to course correct. And it turns out that's essential to getting the best results out of AI. And so now as leaders, the first thing that shifts is we're not just leading people. We are leading people and we are managing AI. But because AI is very dumb at surprising things and unpredictable things, humans have got to stay in the loop. And many would say, and I'm in that camp, in charge. So by design, humans are in the loop. And by design, humans are the ones who are setting the goals, evaluating the work, is it good enough, course correcting along the way. That's the human, not the AI. Okay, and then so here's an experience. So who's heard of OpenClaw, ClawBot, MaltBot? Okay, so there's this big craze. A couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago or so, a new open source app. Like there's this chart. I wish I had it in my slides. There's this chart of like Linux, going up in the number of GitHub stars, likes, followers, going up like this to like 200,000 or something. And then there's this cliff. And the cliff is OpenClaw getting to 200,000 stars like in a weekend. It wasn't quite a weekend, it was a couple of weeks. But the point is it's like a vertical line compared to the 2 decades it took for one of the world's most important software products to reach the same level of GitHub stars. And so that software was OpenClaw, and it had different names in the past, but now it's called OpenClaw. And the reason is because it was the first AI agent put in our hands. And I've played around with it. It is both extraordinary, transformative, exciting, and irritating and frustrating because it's a nascent technology. It's got limitations, but I've got it on my phone, and so every morning I get my morning brief on Telegram, and it goes through: here's what's on your calendar for today. Here are the meetings you need to prepare for. By the way, here's your meeting prep. Here are your flights. By the way, these are the accommodation you haven't booked yet in a week's time, so go and book that. Here's the weather. So forecast for the weekend. Here's some things you could be thinking about for the family. And it's pretty damn impressive. And it does that every day. And I've just told it what I want to know in the morning to focus my mind for the day. But it keeps telling me in the last week and a half, you've not yet booked your accommodation for Durban. But I have. So it's getting like some basic things wrong. It's getting a lot right, and it's impressive, but it's getting a couple of things wrong. And I've told it, update your memory. I have booked. Here's my booking. And for whatever reason, it hasn't done that. Now, I want you to think about a world of agentic AI where there's not just this assistant that is messaging me, but that assistant then instructs another assistant on a trigger like 3 days before, if he hasn't booked, go book for him. And then it goes and books a hotel for me or a flight. Now I want you to think about that happening billions of times a day in every country. It would be an absolute catastrophe. So that is where we are today. We're there with so much potential that you can feel. I want to tell you, so OpenClaw is awesome. I love it. But I spend a lot of time fiddling with it because it's broken in a lot of ways. The point is that we all need to know in our roles what AI should be allowed to do and decide. And that can't be just like a CEO job. Every person in the organization who is managing an AI to get their work done needs to be responsible for governing the AI in their sphere. Governance of AI needs to be a reflex, top down, but throughout the organization, down to people who don't manage any people, but do manage AI. What can it do? What can't it? What can it decide? What can't it? What I need to give it to position it to succeed. So AI governance needs to be a reflex for everybody. Workflow redesign. So what's become very clear is tool sprawl doesn't work. Telling everybody, well, hey, let's use AI. AI is very powerful. Let's use AI. That doesn't work. It leads to quick productivity gains and then a plateau where everybody's busier and more stressed out. What works is when you change how work gets done. Not only how work gets done, but actually what work gets done. Because AI is so transformative, we step back and ask, well, should we still be doing this at all? And if we should, how should it be done? Where should AI do the work and where should the humans do the work? Then you redesign the workflow, you redesign the human role, and then AI and human work together to get the work done. That's what works. And so the companies that are winning with AI are the ones that are redesigning workflows. And where does that happen? It happens where the work happens, which means it happens everywhere, which means workflow redesign is now a continuous activity in every team, which means it's every manager's job. Workflow redesign is not this once every 5-year op model transformation thing like led from the top and they ship in the consultants. It's now all of our job. And because the jagged frontier is always moving, the workflow needs to be updated often. And that means this isn't once every 3-year, once and done. This is ongoing. So workflow redesign is now a core capability needed by every manager. You can tell this feels more stressful, feels faster, and it is. The cadence is going to go up. The speed is going to go up. All of us as leaders and managers are going to have to operate at a whole new speed. We will not be planning once a year and then we execute. We'll be planning throughout the year because things are going to be changing so regularly. Our assumptions are going to be updating so regularly. We're going to need to be updating our plans more regularly. How we prioritize which workflows are we working on next and who does that is going to be updating regularly. So the point is, leaders and managers have got a whole new cadence for their leadership, decision-making, and coordination roles. And so these are some of the key ways that the leadership job has shifted. So these are, just to be clear, on top of the foundation of the timeless principles of leadership. These are not swapping out the timeless principles of leadership. They're built on top of. The timeless principles of leadership. Okay, so my clicker. So that's how the leadership job has changed. So then what do you do about this? How do you make the shift from leading in a pre-AI era to leading in an AI era? I want to share with you a couple of observations. Some of them are from empirical studies that have been done on AI transformations, and others, those are common sense. So the first insight is safety before speed. It might sound counterintuitive based on everything I've covered so far, but well, I want you to imagine leading one of the most important transformations in your company's history, and it's quite existential. Like if you don't get this right, your company's probably in trouble. Then imagine finding out 3 months later that 1/3 of your staff are secretly but deliberately sabotaging that transformation effort. Think about that. Well, that is what's happening. So when you study AI transformation efforts, 1/3 of staff are sabotaging those AI efforts secretly. And why do you think that is?
They don't want to lose their jobs.
That's exactly right. Because people are thinking about what this means, and nobody is helping them answer that question. And in the absence of that question, they're filling in the blanks with their worst fears. And that fear is making them react, I guess, logically. And so they're sabotaging this potential threat to their livelihoods. And so the point is you've got to put safety first. Organizations that start with helping the organization making sense of this change and what this means for us and for you, and create space to ask the hard questions and explore the hard topics, those organizations are seeing a lot more success because they start with psychological safety. So you've got to start with psychological safety. Secondly, you start with your managers first because your managers are ultimately the cold face of psychological safety. Psychological safety is felt first in a team context. At the level of me and my team with our direct superior, team leader, supervisor, that's where it's primarily felt. And so that's where you've got to manage it. So you've got to empower your managers to be leaders who build and maintain psychological safety in the context of what's going to be a lot of change and uncertainty. And number 3 is one workflow at a time. This can feel overwhelming, like we have to do everything overnight because this is such a massive shift, but we're all in the same boat. Just this is a lot of change, it's a lot to absorb, it's a lot to understand, it's a lot to shift, and we're still just humans with 24 hours in a day, and we have to sleep some of those. So it turns out the best way to go is start with one workflow. Now, these are held in balance, so actually it's go broad and then it's go deep. Go broad means get your whole organization feeling comfortable with the transformation journey we're walking, and empowered and equipped. But then when it comes down to changing workflows, start with one. Start with one. Okay, let me share a little bit about our thinking about how you go about these transformations. So at Art of Scale, we help companies like yours scale. And so you'll see if you go through the Art of Scale book, part 1 is why are things hard to scale and what do you do about that? And then part 2 is guess what the content is in part 2. Strategy. Why? Because you start with the kind of company you're trying to build, right? Where are you trying to win and how do you win? Strategy. My background is strategy. My thinking is strategy. I am a strategist. But when we think about how you transform your organization, and the things you have to get right, you have to kind of shift your strategy for the AI era and your way you run your company, your operating system, and your leadership model, how we lead around here, and your people, their competencies and the work they do, and the data and systems. When we think about the order to do all of that, guess what comes first? It's not strategy. Despite the fact that we're primarily strategic in our orientation, because of the fact, it's actually 2 underlying factors. One, the fact that you will fail if your people do not feel safe on this journey. And so people have to come first. And secondly, because of the fact that all your assumptions about the future are wrong, and therefore your strategy will be wrong until you've got better instincts for the future. We don't put strategy first. And that will position you so that when you're starting to work on the strategy, you've got much better instincts for the future we're leading into. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's what we recommend. So here's our approach, and you can kind of do it yourself with Claude or ChatGPT. We run this 1-year program. You can run your own. We spend 13 weeks helping you climb those 4 ladders of personal AI leverage. Right? Build the competencies, the habits, start to experience agentic AI in your personal work, and so forth. Then we help you lead, and this is the part I'm wanting to emphasize here, because this is about leadership in the age of AI. Then, now that you're starting to get a real feel for the power of this technology and you're feeling how it transforms the way you work, okay, now you're much better equipped to start helping your organization go down the same journey. So now we focus on people, and the part that I want you to see how this all comes together, because if you're going to do this, you're going to need a version of this, is we go in parallel broad with the whole organization. So this is all people in the company. And I'll come and unpack the different pieces in a moment. And in parallel to that, we redesign one workflow. Okay, so all of this is getting the whole company on board with AI, and all of this is redesigning one workflow. Now let me just zoom in a little bit to getting all of the company on board with AI. You can see there are different layers. There's like the culture and change layer. There's the guardrails layer. What can people do? What can't they do? What are allowed tools? What kind of data can you put into AI? All that stuff. There's training our managers, and then there's training all the rest of our people. The part that I want you to notice here is the sequencing of training managers versus training people versus preparing for all of that. In a 13-week sprint, in what week is training for the organization arriving? It's only in week 8. There's been 7 weeks of preparation for that moment. And what's coming before the rest of the organization meets AI, like officially, formally, the organization is now saying, we're on this road and we want you to embrace working with these tools. What comes before that is manager training, where managers go through a couple of very powerful experiences, including feeling the power themselves, working with it in a way that they feel what this changes. And then they sit in a room and talk about the fears this brings up. Why? Because they're going to have to do the same with their team. They're going to have to sit in rooms and talk about all the fears that this brings up. And how can they do that if they've got fears that are undiscussed, unresolved, unsurfaced? So you've got to have time where you're getting your leaders of other people in the room and you're modeling what it looks like to create psychological safety for them so they can do the same for their teams. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, by the way, I mean, everything I'm sharing with you here is based on really good research at kind of the big Ivy League schools. It's MIT, it's Harvard, and so forth. And it's from empirical findings in organizations that have walked the road of AI transformation. And there's one particular HBR article I want you to just look up. Look up the AWARE framework, AWARE. What that is it's a framework of 5 practices that leaders can use and embody to model, create, and maintain psychological safety in their teams, specifically in the context of the AI transformation that lies before us. Okay, so that is, one workflow at a time, and how you do that in parallel to taking your organization broadly through an AI transformation. And the point that I want to conclude on here is what this means for us, the uncomfortable truth, which is that this is a hell of a lot to internalize and to lead. It's a lot, and to be honest, it's too much. This is too much for the average busy small business leader to manage. But it's not too much for the average AI-powered small business leader to manage. It's just too much for somebody without that extraordinary multiplying force. So the concluding point is, if you're going to lead your organization into the AI era, you yourself need to be an AI-powered leader, because it entails a lot. There's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we're not capable of. There's a speed we're not capable of. And all of that is dramatically helped by personally embracing this force multiplier of AI in the work we do and how we do it. All right, so let's conclude and then go to questions, and then we're going to take a break. I want to leave you with this thought. Your business, whether it was conscious or not, was designed around a certain set of constraints. What's available to you, what's not, what's easy, what's hard, what's possible, what's not. Your business was designed around those constraints, and they have changed. The constraints have fundamentally changed. But has your business caught up to the new possibilities and the new constraints? Because the businesses that win whenever there's an epoch shift, and make no mistake, we are living through an epoch shift. The businesses that win in the new epoch are those that build what is now possible. They don't optimize what was always possible and is now just possible but faster and cheaper. They build what is now possible. So have you caught up? Have you organized around the new possibilities and the new constraints? Because if not, that's the thing to fix. And how do you do it? You start with one constraint at a time. One constraint at a time. You start there and then you repeat. And so that's what we're going to do after the break. After the break, we're going to go into a lab. You're not going to hear much from me anymore. I'll introduce the session. You're actually going to start with one constraint. We're going to arm you with a workbook, with some prompts. You're going to open up a laptop, a screen, a ChatGPT or a Claude window, and you're going to work with AI, with the workbook we've given you and the prompts we've given you. You're going to walk out the door having made a lot of progress, targeting one constraint in your business with the power of AI. That's what we're going to do after the break. Okay, does that sound good? Yeah. All right, so let's hit pause. Let's go to questions and discussion. And, just doing a quick time check. It's 11:16, so we need to get to break in the next couple of minutes. But let's see how we go with the questions, and then we'll get to the coffee. All right. If I could ask you, if you wouldn't mind just grabbing the mic before you share your question, and that will just mean the tech team doesn't beat me up afterwards. All right. Merritt, are you going to?
Yeah, I'll run the mic.
So we've been looking at how to use AI and scale the use of it. And I have a contact center business. So I went to a workshop 3 years ago on AI. Put your hand up, and the guy said my business would be dead within 6 months. He said I'd be bankrupt. Those were his exact words. 3 years, we're still here, and the fear around what AI is going to do in the contact center sort of has hit reality. But what we keep coming up against, and when we're talking about it, is AI for me personally in a ChatGPT or a Claude sense is affordable. But when we start putting in the volumes of data to scale or to ingest in a business like ours, it starts becoming prohibitively expensive. So how do we get past that? And I know that's a very difficult and broad question, but that's one of the things that sort of, even as far as quality goes and all the data points, if we had to get an AI model to ingest all of that, it would cost a fortune.
It's a great question. I think your business is unique in that you have very high data volume. And so, you'll kind of hit the ceiling on your $20 a month account pretty quickly, and then pay a fortune for API tokens. So you're probably needing to look at local infrastructure. I don't know if you have yet, but the open source models that are free to acquire and to run, other than the energy and infrastructure costs, their performance is not far off the frontier models. And so you would need to figure out what's the, what exactly is the volume throughput, and on that basis, what kind of infrastructure do we need? Are we talking about one Mac studio or an array of 20 of them? And then how do we optimize for the model in light of the type of data and then the infrastructure setup? Then you're talking about cost of maintaining that infrastructure and the energy costs, which is going to be a lot cheaper. You'll save a lot of money that way. It also has the benefit of privacy. Obviously, if a lot of that data is secure, it's never leaving your own data center. So that's the answer, yeah. All right, good. Next question. Yeah, at the back.
This question is based from an experience that I've done, an experiment. So we were at a point where we were trying to scaling up, and obviously I don't have an HR function. So I'm trying to screen all of these interns and figure out what's the best decision to make at that time. So what I've done, I've input the CVs on ChatGPT. It screened all of them, and then basically I've tasked one of my employees to say, you know what, do the interviews. I actually just want to test if AI is actually correct by selecting and screening each individual based on your experience on each candidate. So what happened is that maybe out of 5 CVs, we got it right by 2 of each. So now, from a regulation point of view, we end up gonna make we're gonna make the final decision, right? Now, if I had to make a decision based on an advice that I was given by AI, I made the final decision because I was guided by AI.
Yeah.
Won't that end up biting me if something happens to the business based on my decision that I made from an AI component? Because obviously it guided me to make the final decision. But now if something happens that affects my reputation, and then from a legal point of view, I need to be asked, okay, but what led you to make that decision to hire this person? And then it comes back to say, AI led it. Is that decision part of the regulatory framework? Won't it come and bite a business owner as well?
Great question. Yeah. So this is going to be a major, hotbed of landmines. Hiring and actually everything that affects the fate, the opportunities of people. So the regulations are going to be different from country to country. You have to know your local laws and what they deem as responsible use of AI and then operate within those laws. I would say a generalizable principle that will probably apply in most cases is auditability. If you can demonstrate the work the AI did in order to accelerate a process a human was accountable for, then you're in the clear. As long as the AI wasn't discriminating against a person in a way that's not auditable, not traceable. Now, okay, so are these AIs inherently biased by their training data? Yes, they are. And so are you, and so the people you employ who are evaluating resumes. And by the way, so is the resume. So bias is just everywhere here. You can't get rid of bias, but what you can do is you can be clear about criteria and apply them fairly. So if you can post-train the AI, and here we're talking about the simple way. If you create an agent which has got to apply a rubric, a scoring rubric, it's got to populate that rubric, and then a human can go and audit whether or not it did that effectively, whether there's a clear correlation between the input data, the resume, the interviews, whatever, and how that person got scored against the rubric. If the rubric is fair, the valuation is fair, using AI to accelerate the process is defensible. So what you want to do is set up the system so you can defend your bias. You will be biased. Just by asking for a person who's better at A, B, and C, that's a bias, but it's a selected bias, it's a defensible bias. And so just make sure that they're fair biases that you're applying in your assistant and that you keep an audit trail.
Many of us used a thing called Excel many years ago with that bias to make decisions.
Yeah.
We're still doing that today. And I think that's one of the fundamental problems that we're having is that everyone's talking about AI, forgetting, and maybe I'm giving my age away, probably people at my age were the ones that develop the AI, but that's a different story. But at the end of the day, we mustn't overcomplicate what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Just to give an example, in my business, a simple thing like I only use Outlook Diary to facilitate my day. When I have the meetings, AI generates the notes.
Yeah.
I can then download that and analyze that to make decisions. It's a very simple AI that's sitting there that everyone's using.
Yeah.
So remember that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. And I can trust me, a computer will not work, because it is a computer, if its human doesn't switch it on.
Yeah.
Or make sure that the battery's got 100 or at least a small percentage to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
My question is within the healthcare sector and the usage of AI, because within my business I get paid to save people's lives. So I see a lot of AI, and I think I'm here to also upgrade myself. I think back in the days there was no AI in medical school. So the very important thing is that now with virtual consultations, featuring in and these wearable devices that are tracking patients, AI is interpreting and diagnosing, and when you're doing a consultation with a patient, they'll tell you about Dr. Google says. Okay. So we are constantly in a huge competition, but all in all, for us who are running medical practices nationally, it's a matter of trying to figure out where is the healthcare sector when it comes to AI.
We have another doctor in the room who will contribute in a moment. It's also very clear it's fraught with problems. And so what lies ahead is a lot of business model innovation, a lot of product innovation, a lot of regulatory challenges, hurdles that need to be cleared. And, so the healthcare sector, is going to be one of those. The low-hanging fruit for you, back office, sort out your back office with AI technology, that's low-hanging fruit. Then I think that AI is a gold mine for proactive and preventative healthcare, but it comes with a real health warning. People can really get things wrong. They can take advice as gospel and so on and so forth. So I think you will probably find clusters of healthcare fraternities that appropriate a philosophy, a tech stack, and work with clients in particular ways that they've come to arrive at are safe as a system. And I would try and gravitate towards one that you resonate with, where the philosophy seems right, the use of AI seems right. And then there's, obviously a road of implementation and growth and learning. So, I'm afraid it's quite a high-level answer because it's obviously complex. But I would go for the low-hanging fruit where you aren't affecting, people's lives today. Like, get all your back office sorted out as soon as possible. You can get a lot of efficiency gains there, customer service and so on. And then tread carefully when it comes to people receiving ChatGPT's advice via your human doctor. I see your hands up. We had a hand up here first, so I'm going to go 1, 2.
Thank you, Jason. Dr. Brett here from Alpha and Omega Group. I just wanted to say, since our last session, your masterclass in Cape Town, I asked you for some advice of what can I do as a practical tip to advance my fluency in AI. And your advice was to think with AI, not leaving your brain behind, like someone is telling us, you have to switch the computer on, but to think with it and think strategically with it. My question today is on your point on managers needing to re-evaluate or redesign their workflow continuously. How do we, as the leaders of our organizations and the AI evangelists, basically, how do we encourage our managers or team to think of areas that can improve efficacy of our workflow and production, and that's it, on fluency and on redesigning the workflow. Thank you.
So it's a great question. I mean, we get right into the heart of human nature and what kind of change processes work well and what don't. But what works best is when people want it. So the best thing to do is get a couple of champions who experience the power of AI and they just use it for everything that they can. And then it turns out they sneeze on the people around them. So you want to actively encourage in a safe way, so with guardrails, actively encourage the people who show inherent just curiosity, interest, enthusiasm, they experiment, encourage that with guardrails, and let them become your evangelists. I mean, the best thing you can do is to actually not be the evangelist. It's to let other people be the evangelist and sneeze on the people around them. So by the way, if you've got none of those today, pick a couple of managers who've got work that they don't like, and which AI could do better, and then sit with them and help them get that work done with AI and see how they can just be freed of that, and you'll pretty soon have some sneezes.
If anyone who's saying something can start by giving us the content symbol of what they do, so that question of AI, where does it come from? Like especially my sister behind, if she said she's coming from the healthcare sector, so now we know, okay, her question comes from the healthcare sector. But sometimes you say we left behind, we don't know where does that question come from, which context, what kind of business. So what left behind, you can just match that.
Yes, good suggestion. Here we go.
Okay, so I'm from the healthcare sector as well, but from the manufacturing side. And I think the point I wanted to just make is that we mustn't forget, even with AI, that we've got regulatory compliance. So when it comes to medical devices, there's certain verifications and validations that are required. And also you see it also with the financial sector. FICA's got its own regulations that you have to comply with. So when you are designing the workflow, you can't ignore those responsibilities as well. Thank you.
100%. Thank you. And then last one.
My name is Vincent. We're from Partidos. So we do a lot of AI training. We started immediately the light bulbs went off. Now, our key aspect that we are looking at is how it affects education, right? So we're doing a lot of AI training in education.
Yeah.
Now, from what you discussed, of course, we do see this curve going towards a whole lot of unemployment. It's a whole lot of unemployment because now when you increase productivity in the workplace, you'll definitely hire less because you're looking at maximizing your profits. Now, what I want to get an idea of what your perspective is in terms of curriculum changes to be able to address this gap that we foresee coming in the near future.
So our mission as a company is job creation. This is a topic that for us is, we're very conflicted because there is a chance that there's going to be a lot of job reduction. There's a lot of uncertainty though, because if you study technology revolutions in the past, there's this thing called Jevons paradox, and what it says is, when energy goes from expensive to cheap, people use a lot more. So it's not as simple as actually, the economy shrinks because people are paying less for fuel. Actually, people might be paying in total more for fuel because they're using it. They're suddenly discovering all the things that fuel is useful for. And we're going to experience the same thing, that like cognitive work used to like mostly get neglected because it wasn't worth it. And now people are going to be discovering, like my son, making Flappy Bird because he wants to play it, and that would have never happened in the past. That cognitive work to create an app for one child would have never made sense, but it made sense, so he did it. Like the amount of cognitive work is going to explode, and that cognitive work is going to create a whole lot of downstream effects. A whole lot of things are going to now need managing that never needed managing before. People, we're in, you could call it the YouTube moment for software and design and creation. The YouTube moment was when we went from like anything you watch on a screen probably like went through the board of SABC, right? Because they were gatekeepers of content via one of the very few channels. And then it became DSTV and Mnet and so on, but very few gatekeepers controlled what content was available. And then suddenly technologies converged and made it possible for you or your child to be a publisher, right? To be an actor and a director and a producer and a publisher and everything all in one, so that anybody in the world can see your content. Technology converged and made that possible, and we had the YouTube moment, the explosion of content production. And we're in the YouTube moment now for software and for a bunch of other things, where actually the barriers to that, what used to be skilled, expensive, gate-kept work, those barriers have collapsed. So there's going to be an explosion. Now think about what it's meant for content that we had the YouTube moment. Think about how differently you consume content now from in the past. we think how many people are involved in the kind of content sphere now, actors and producers and directors. I bet you it's a hell of a lot more people in total than there used to be involved, like when it was down to Hollywood. But it looks very different. The shape has changed dramatically. And we're going to live through a very similar, unpredictable transformation where a lot of old professions die in their old form, but continue in dramatically and unpredictable new forms. I don't think, for example, law will continue in its old form. But I think the amount of legal work that gets done is going to be a lot more, like 100 times more. I just don't know who's going to do it and what business models will exist. But I think there will be one-man law firms that do more legal work than Bowman and Gilfillan do today. So there's a lot that's unpredictable about the future, and the amount of work, we're going to see a Cambrian explosion of work. So what does that mean for livelihoods, and what does that mean for education? I mean, firstly, I obviously can't tell you. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows which sectors will change how fast and in what way. We can kind of predict which sectors will be highly impacted sooner, like, you know, the high expertise knowledge fields where that work is based on codifiable knowledge and it's repeatable. Those professions are going to change fundamentally. But we can foresee a tiny fraction of all the changes that are going to ripple out. So is there a case that there will be as many livelihoods, or maybe more, fewer gatekeepers, more livelihoods in the future? Yes, there is that case. Do I know where it's going to land up? No, I don't. Do I think that it's a good idea for all entrepreneurs to AI power themselves and everybody in their business and their children and their mother? Yes, I definitely think that. I think everybody should become their own everything with AI. Their own publisher, creator, software writer, lawyer, doctor, everything. We should all learn how to do everything we can with AI. And then what I think is the kind of the one most predictable thing to me about what we need to do about the livelihoods problem is we need a culture shift to where everybody is essentially an entrepreneur. Everybody is primarily thinking about problems they could be solving in their sphere and how they could solve that with AI. No, the person needs to get their job done. I could build an app for that. Sure, they could also build the app for it, but they're really busy. They'd probably rather pay me to do it. So I'll spend the 3 hours, because them it would take 7 hours, me it would take 3 hours, and their 7 hours they'd rather spend on something else and they have the luxury of their choice. So they'll pay me. So I will build an app for one person. And I will do that 1,000 times a year. Build an app for one person. There we go. There's a business right there that could have never existed in the past. And now somebody who doesn't know how to code and still won't know how to code after building 1,000 apps can run that business. And there are a bunch of other businesses like that. There are so many cases where I need legal work that does not need a lawyer. I need an NDA, and it just needs to be a good NDA. That does not need a lawyer. So there's going to be a whole lot of legal work which people are happy to pay for, knowing there's no lawyer behind that legal work. And the list goes on and on and on and on. So I think that entrepreneurship, which is primarily a mindset, is going to be the universal need. And so that brings us to your ultimate question, is how does the curriculum need to change? I think that for the next couple of years, personally, I'm a realist. Personally, I think this is not a curriculum problem. Personally, I think this is a parenting problem. We know the education system is one of the slowest moving institutions in history. Like, it just changes slower than a sloth. And so I think that, like, our hopes are entirely misplaced if we think that changes in the curriculum are going to solve for this. So don't mishear me. I think we must change the curriculum. I think smart people who are in that field must do that. I just don't think that's going to solve our problem. So yes, it must happen. I think where we solve this problem is that the people raising people solve this problem. The people who are the most powerful influencers of mindsets and behaviors, they solve this problem. So that's everybody in the business of solving mindset and behavior shift. So I say parents primarily because, for youth, I think that's kind of a strong place where that happens. Obviously, for older generations, what we need is everybody that cares and is in a position of influence should be playing a strong role in helping people adopt simple entrepreneurial mindsets and behaviors. And I'm saying simple because I think this can be quite simple, like a YouTube channel can be quite simple. Like, who do I want to talk to and what do I want to say and why should they listen? Okay, let me get going and learn along the way. And entrepreneurship needs to be something like that. Who around me has got problems that they don't have the time to solve, but they've got the money to pay for it, and I with AI could solve it. Well, okay, let me try and let me see if I can charge them. And then let me just keep doing that all the time and see where I find the kind of opportunities where I can make a living and enjoy it. That's what I think people need to do. Okay, guys, we are getting going with part 3, which is the strategy lab. For those of you hoping for a demo, this is not what that is. You are doing the work on your business. We're going to probably have to adapt a little. The brief is for you to work on 2 constraints in your business using AI and workbooks we've given you, and to walk away with results and next steps. I'm going to talk you through those 2 constraints. The first is a person constraint. If you think about what we talked about here today, your business today faces a number of painful constraint points. Some of those constraint points are people constraint points. There's just a person and they're overloaded. There's too much work for them to do. They can't keep up. They need more speed. They need to be able to process more volume. That's one version of the challenge. The other is you've got a finance, you've got a bookkeeper and they're doing the job of a CFO. The person has got a fundamental competence, experience, knowledge, expertise gap. And so those are 2 versions of how a person constraint could look. And what you're going to do is you're going to identify the person. You're not going to try to solve the whole universe today. You're going to pick a repeat painful situation in which the constraint shows up for you, for them, for the business. You're then going to build an AI assistant for them so that they have got an assistant, a kind of an instance of ChatGPT pre-programmed to work with them in that exact situation to help solve for the speed and or capability gap. You're going to build it. We've given you a workbook. It's in your inbox. You're going to copy and paste that into your preferred LLM, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. You're going to copy and paste that. And you're going to run the prompt. And then through just iterating through that conversation, you're going to land up with what's ultimately an AI assistant in the form of a master prompt that person can apply. Now, what you do after this room is you go build a Claude skill for them to work with, or you build a custom GPT or whatever, but you can also just copy and paste the prompt in every time, right? That's an acceptable way to use it. So you will have that master prompt, that's what you got, and then it's for you and them to agree how do you now institutionalize that after today. If you have some time, iterate it, so use it, see how it works, change 1 or 2 things you want to change in the prompt. Okay, so that is the first type of constraint. It's a person constraint. You've got all this. This is a summary form of what you've got in your inbox under the heading Lab A. There's a Word document, and in the name is Lab A. The second type of constraint is a workflow constraint. The constraint is not a specific person, it's a workflow. Similar logic, it just, the workflow is broken or it's not processing enough volume. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pick the workflow, you're going to take the huge prompt out of Lab B, that workbook, you're going to copy and paste it into your LLM, and then you're going to work in that assistant and you're going to do a diagnostic on that workflow, and it's going to identify the point at which AI can give you a lot of leverage. And then you're going to build an assistant for one of those constraint points in the workflow. That assistant is for the person that operates that part of the workflow to use. In that situation, that gives you leverage. And again, test and refine. Now, these 2 processes should take you roughly half an hour each. If you kind of 100% focused and you've got 1 or 2 things on hand, therefore you won't be able to get through both of them anymore. We ate into a bit of this time with Q&A, which is okay, but what I recommend therefore is you choose one of these that feels the most relevant to you right now. Either the person you want to deconstrain at one point, or the workflow you want to deconstrain, and then you use that workbook, and that's the one you do. And then I recommend make the time for the other one before you leave today. Put time in your diary, an extra half an hour to an hour in your diary for this week to do the other one. Why? Because this will target one of your most acute constraints in your business. That's the goal here. Use AI to target a constraint point. Okay, so those are the two workflows. So just to be really clear, what you're going to do next is open your inbox. You're going to look for an email from Francie. The inbox will have two attachments. If you, by the way, don't have that email, you just go to Francie and you ask her to send it to you. Give her your email address and she will then send it to you. She sent it to everybody that I think signed up for today with their email address, but there might be one or two gaps. So just go to her, she'll send it to you. You're going to open up the Lab A or Lab B document, depending on which of these two constraints you chose. If you chose the person as constraint, you open the Lab A Word document. If you chose the workflow constraint, you open the Lab B document. Then you read it and you do what it says. Basically, it will guide you. And what it will tell you to do is open up your LLM, Claude, ChatGPT. You do that. It will tell you to fill in some information in the Word document and then copy and paste into your LLM, and then you follow the prompt from there. And the output you're expecting by the time you leave here is an AI assistant that you have tested that targets this constraint. Okay, so that's what we're doing. I'm going to leave it over to you. If you haven't received email, just put up your hand, go to Francie, give her your email address, she'll close that gap. If you've got any questions, feel free to just come up to me, I'll be up here. And otherwise, it's over to you. I'm handing the baton over to you to work on your business now. All right. You need ChatGPT or Claude, you can just go to their account, their webpage. I mean, you can use a free account, just don't load up any proprietary data. So both Claude and ChatGPT have got a free account. Don't load up proprietary data. Don't load up anything you're uncomfortable with them training their model on. Probably nothing you're going to work with here today meets those criteria, so you should be fine. Okay, that dreaded interruption is upon us. Who felt a shift happening here in the last 30 minutes of your work? You felt some progress, some momentum. You can see where this is going, and that's exciting to you. There's a constraint that is going to be broken through. So this is an extraordinary tool, and you can reuse and repeat this sort of thing. And that's the thing that I hope you will do. I want to share with you a couple of resources available to you after today. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of our time here. So online, you will find on the Founders at Work site, you'll find a couple of valuable resources. So firstly, you'll find a couple of podcasts where we interview successful founders who've scaled in Africa, and they've learned lessons the hard way, which they share so you don't have to. So if you want to hear real founders sharing about their stories and what works, looking back over 10, 20 years of scaling here, that'll be useful to you. Then secondly, I mentioned the program that we have to help companies adopt AI. So those 4 quarterly sprints for you to master AI, then your team, then your strategy, then your operating system. It's called Shift AI. If you're interested, if you want more information, you can go to the Art of Scale website and you can look for our sprints. Under sprints, you will find Shift AI. We need to get our next date in the diary. It'll probably be late April, early May. We'll have a next one-day Shift AI bootcamp, which is focused, it's a zoom out from today. It's a one-day event on what AI means for scaling your business and what it means for you personally as a CXO of a scale-up. And that also is the beginning of our 90-day sprint focused on AI augmenting yourself. It's for CXOs and boardroom leaders of SMEs. And it's also the beginning of the 1-year program. So if that sounds interesting, check it out on the Art of Scale website. The next masterclasses for Founders at Work. So we're here today. The next one will be in Polokwane, the Art of Execution. How do you set up your company to execute in light of what AI now makes possible? So that's in April. Again, because you're down here, you'll probably live stream that. So that's the way to do it. Sign up for the live stream. And then May, we're doing the art of hiring. So it's kind of a continuation of today. I think that is, I think those are it. We were going to pair you up to network, share lessons, but because we spent more time in Q&A, we've run out of time for that. So I'm going to suggest that anyone who wants to hang around, mill around in here until someone kicks you out, meet some people, share some lessons, but otherwise we are going to kind of live up to our promise of being done by 1 and sending you home, and we're going to wrap up over here. I'm around for the next half hour. If you've got any questions, please feel free to come. But from First National Bank, Art of Scale, and Founders at Work, thanks for coming, and I hope it was a valuable way to spend your morning. All right, have a great day, everyone. You got